All right, hello everyone. Good evening. I am Vineet Jain, and I'm here to talk about OsteoPhilicity. We put AI in bones. Actually, no, this is not about AI. It's completely passive, nothing sexy. But before I talk about my technology, let me tell you a little bit about PEEK, polyether ketone. It is a polymer very widely used in any bone replacement application, spine, dental, joints, craniofacial, and combined it's about a $25 billion market. But PEEK has problems, and for any material to be an ideal bone replacement material, you need to have three things. It needs to look like bone to any type of radio imaging so that post-operative care can be easily delivered. It needs to feel like bone to the body so it doesn't damage the tissue and the bone surrounding it. And it needs to act like bone, and by that I mean it needs to support bone growth. PEEK does the first two very well, the third not so good. So, many technologies have been introduced to improve the bone growth properties of PEEK, and these technologies are fairly successful and provide about 2 to 3 times better bone growth. Now, slight tangent here. I was an entrepreneur in residence at Highmark Health, the $20 billion integrated healthcare system. And 2 research scientists over there had lots of research in the space of PEEK and how they could improve the bone growth of PEEK by 10 times. They have a publication that demonstrates their in vitro success, and they even had a PCT patent application. So what I did is I negotiated an exclusive license deal with them, and I'm trying to build a company around that. So, what is Aquapeak? Aquapeak is a plug-in technology that can work on top of any existing technologies, any existing implant, any existing production line, and provide about 5 to 10 times better bone growth. Not only that, we qualify for the quickest, fastest, easiest 510K FDA pathway. So our focus is currently the spinal fusion market. Currently, about 20% spinal fusion surgeries fail, many of them because of this very problem. This market is huge, and the top 10 players, or the top 5 players in this space, are so desperate to solve this problem that they have acquired over 10 companies in the last 5 years in this space alone. And here is a list of many other companies who have been bought and sold in this space. High M&A activity, and these are all technologies that are our predecessors. So, all of our predecessors have followed the same path. They do in vitro studies, small animal studies, large animal studies, 510K filing, and eventually sales. And at each of these inflection points, they have been bought or at least have had some solicitation for purchase. We believe that we will follow these same steps, and we believe that we will also present a good exit for a bigger player. We are raising our seed round, and we have raised half of it, and we're looking for another half, about 200K for our seed round, but I will also take fake money. So we're too early for finances at this point, but there's 3 things to note here. We need about $8 million to get through FDA, and we can extract about a $500 margin, at least a $500 margin per unit that we modify. And lastly, for these curves, by year 4, we can break even, and that's only by year 5, we're only capturing 2% of the market. So there's a lot of scope there. And lastly, here's my team, 2 research scientists that are key opinion leaders in the biopolymer, orthopedic, and spine space. They have defined FDA regulations on how to assess these type of materials and how to assess these type of spinal implants. And then lastly, Dr. Keith Lejeune, who's also a 2 times entrepreneur like me, highly successful, understands the space very well, and he's our board member from Highmark Health. Thank you. With that, I'll take some questions.
Great, thank you. Here we go. We'll start on this end. Nice presentation. Can you explain the value of your implant versus your predecessors from a cost-benefit analysis? You mentioned many companies have already produced similar things that are better alternatives to PEEK. So how are those ones why would a surgeon now use yours versus ones that have come out prior?
Right. So current technologies are very expensive compared to ours. We are at least 10 times better when it comes to cost effectiveness, but more importantly, we're 10 times better when it comes to bone growth and bone growth support. Our estimate is that to modify one unit costs us about $16. All these other technologies are using sandblasting, plasma blasting, laser blasting, porous 3D printed type of technologies that are very expensive. And when you go into GMP, to maintain a standard of quality is very expensive and tough to do. Our chemical process is very simple. GMP is very simple. Maintaining standards is very simple. And so are the costs. Yeah.
Thank you. Nice presentation. This is a very crowded market. I'm an orthopedist, and there is a lot of this going on. There's a distinguishing thing that beyond the bone growth piece, because I'm not really sure you're benchmarking that against some of the more modern devices. It might be benchmarked against some of the older, not enhanced implants. But one thing that could distinguish you is if you consider doing this on location, so they become customizable at low cost if your GMP is really as simple as you say and foolproof as you say, because one of the things we see is that could be a differentiator for you. Are you guys considering that at all? So a lot of hospitals are doing 3D printing on site and moving towards implants, not just training models.
Yeah, so there hasn't been any 3D implants on site in the spinal implant or spinal fusion space, and there are multiple reasons for it. There is titanium, which is tough to do 3D printing and removing all the debris before you can implant it. And PEEK does not allow for 3D printing that easily. There's another polymer called PEEK. Our patent covers that as well if someone would want to 3D print that and modify it. But all the other technologies that are in this space already, these were supposed to be tick marks, by the way. I don't know, they're boxes. But as you can see, we have more boxes than anyone else. But to the first part of your question, we have taken the state-of-the-art technologies to compare ours with theirs. They do lots of crystallized infusion, HA crystallization, things like that. And if you think about the manufacturability, the cost, and the benefit, if you compare all of those, we believe that we have a superior solution to all of them. Yeah, so in another way, I took a step back and said, what is the best solution in this space, right? There's manufacturability, how can we scale it, provide it at cost, and even implement this in the existing space easily. There's the safety part of it, and then there's the bone growth part of it. And if you take all those three dimensions, we believe that we're a superior product.
Can you tell us why you're raising so little? And how much runway will that give you? You said you need $8 million to get FDA.
Correct.
So can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Right, yeah. So the biggest questions around this technology right now, even though they're low risk, are biocompatibility and bioefficacy within an animal right now, or eventually in a human being, right? If we do a small animal study that would cost us below in the $150 to $200 range, we could de-risk those two question marks that we have. And I believe the valuation of our company would be much better at that point, and then we can go back and raise some more funds at a much cheaper cost to the company.
Just one quick question. Your product has much more aggressive bone growth. Are you concerned about bone overgrowth?
So not in the spinal fusion application that we're going after, because the goal here is to get the two vertebrae to fuse as quickly as possible. So we're using existing products that are already there with the same surface area. We're just doing a chemical modification on top.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any audience questions?
kind of clinical evidence would you need to show superiority over your competitors to drive adoption?
Yeah. Okay. So to get to an FDA filing, all we need is animal studies because we are a coding. We fall into the coding world. However, we plan to do a clinical study. And so that way we can market it in a better manner. All our predecessors have followed one of the two paths. Either they've done animal studies and went to market, or they've also done a clinical study on top. So in terms of what kind of data that we would have to provide, is that your question, by the way? Yeah. So my scientists are in the FDA space, and they would know better how to design that clinical study. We're not there yet, and I wouldn't be that informed to say so. Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Very interesting.